Hello there, and welcome to Thank the Maker, a podcast about heroes, princesses, scoundrels, hokey religions, ancient weapons, and all things Star Wars. I'm Adam Russell.
I am Mike Forrester.
This is Nick Gambarian.
Yes, it is.
All
Wow.
right. My video was late, but my audio wasn't. It sounded like garbage, but I'm professional and I figured it out. My internet sucks. Hi, everyone.
It's all right. Finally, the internet abides. Last week, things happen, but it's fine. We move on. Everything's good. We move on. We go to San Diego Comic-Con. We party hard. We learn and see things. We have a good time. We come back, and then the internet abides. Did you guys have a good time?
I had a blast. That was my favorite San Diego Comic-Con by far.
Nice.
I think I have a good time every year, but everything seemed carefree and positive. Maybe we're getting further and further from COVID, so everything else is going well too. But from the mosh standpoint was awesome. From the con standpoint, from the panel to partying afterwards, everything was just top notch.
Yeah. Top notch. Do you think that's because we've adjusted our expectations a little bit for understanding the massive undertaking that is both attending and being a part of San Diego Comic-Con, the world's largest comic and pop culture convention, Nick? This delay is really doing it for me.
I'm going to answer for Nick. I think adjusted expectations help. Obviously, yeah. Doing mosh, maybe we'll talk about this more next week, but we've got it down in that venue. That's our third time in that venue at the Music Box. It works well, and I want to say maybe we all spent a little more time at the actual con. We did a panel for the second year in a row, so it's becoming, I don't want to say routine, but we know what to expect and we know how to handle it a little bit better. And it feels good, It's not like celebration in some ways is almost more stressful because we want to do what we want to do personally. We want to do what we have to do as a podcast or we have to do as Mosh Isley.
Right.
And it's a lot, but San Diego, it's definitely smoother. Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah. I think
we're learning. Hi, my internet works for a second. Let me talk. I think we're learning, we are for sure. It's so funny because you guys are frozen right now. But I'm going to keep talking. We're learning what to do. We take mosh very seriously. And I think that because we've done it 3 years in a row now, this is how you organically build a community. People are more and more excited. It sold out earlier this year. More people showed up in their own outfits. They brought more lightsabers. They knew the songs. Just the energy being given to us from the floor to the stage was just it was the best Mosh Isley ever. That's for sure.
I like that. I think from this standpoint, I didn't go last year. I couldn't attend last year, but this year, I think setting almost looking at knowing a better layout of both the convention after taking a year off and then coming back to it and being there's artists that I know are going to be there. I don't mess with any exclusives. I'm not really into that. I had Raimi from Dad Batch was able to get into preview night on Wednesday. And I just said, hey, if you're able to grab this of the exclusive art that I wanted, I picked up a tiki, a coconut mug in the shape of Boba Fett, which was pretty awesome. And you know what? Because it's my thing on this podcast to show visual aids instead of the podcast. Look who I met.
Signed by Doug Chang.
Look at that little silver hit right there. Did you see it? Oh my goodness. So
little N1 Starfighter concept art.
That's right. So me and Kate Sabaker, who helped out with our panel on Saturday night, went to go see, we just happened to be at the Abrams booth, which Abrams is the publishing company that puts out a lot of the art of books. They are official Star Wars bookseller, and they do a lot of the art of books. And so They're the ones putting out the what would you call it, like a career retrospect for Doug Chang. They did the same thing for Ralph McQuarrie.
Right.
And so it's a very, 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 this book is about $300. And so Doug was basically signing what's called a book plate, which is where some people don't want to sign the actual book. They will include a, I don't know, would you call it, like an artist, kind of almost like a postcard that they can sign that comes with the book. And
Like
so
a headshot.
basically, yeah. And so it has Doug's signature. You can actually see on the back.
Oh, nice.
There's what it looks like. So there's a pre-order code. And it says that this book particularly is on sale December 2nd, just in time for the holidays. And it was really cool. And Adam, when we talked to him at the celebration panel, and I said, "Hey, Art of Books, man, I was the one who asked you about it." He goes, "Oh, I remember that question." I said, "I'm back.
I want a better answer,
I
man.
want a better answer. Now tell me." So anyways, we kicked around about that. That was really fun. And then his assistant gave me this, which is the Lucasfilm Art Department sticker.
Nice. Like business card size, a little glossy.
Yeah.
And one again.
Yeah, with a little mat. It's very sweet.
What a beauty.
Yeah, it was cool. So we got to talk a little bit of Star Wars, and he was super nice. And generally, I always find the creatives of Star Wars to be incredibly kind people, very patient, very understanding that this is a really cool thing to do. And to actually meet him, it was lovely. He's an amazing creative, and it was awesome to meet him and geek out for a second.
He seems like the kind of nice where he better actually be like that, or he must be like in so much pain to be a fake nice. You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
like he is so nice that that better be genuine, or else like he must be dying on the inside to fake it.
Yeah, you can't be that nice publicly and not be a nice person in real life. The only other option would be like a complete evil genius narcissist that is plotting like the end of the world behind that facade.
Right. Lex Luthor level. No, it was really cool. And I think for us, to be able to hang with Kate, we went around to a lot of the art, alternative art sites. So I got to meet Ryan Meandering, who is the concept artist for a lot of the Marvel stuff. Really cool. He has an art of book that kind of walks through all of the phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 of Marvel. So it's, if you are a fan of this stuff, all this stuff we're talking about, Comic-Con is an incredible place to go and meet other creatives. The booths have, artists are there that are signing stuff. Jason Edmonston, who I've actually given the Eyes Without a Face series that I've given both of you actually art from, was at his booth. He was there with an exclusive print. Went up and talked to him about Star Wars, what else we can be expecting from that series that I have right here, back here. And he also, again, people they are artists, they are fans of this stuff. That's why they're here. So if you are interested in that, attend, go to a con, support art. I think that's a really great, underrated part of going to a convention, besides just sitting at some giant panel with a bunch of celebrities. Dude,
didn't you also meet Neil?
I did. Yeah. At the Roosevelt's booth. What's his name?
The kid who plays Neil in Skeleton Crew is who we're talking about here.
Robert. No, is it?
Yeah, it's
Jeremy Allen White.
There you go.
What?
No, that's the dude from The Bear.
Stop that.
Elijah Wood.
No, it's Robert Timothy Smith.
I knew it was 3. Jeremy Allen White's pretty close because it was 3.
Dude, shout out to Robert Timothy Smith's parents for being, I assume, about our age and not naming him some kind of Gen Z name that drives me up a damn wall that I'm not going to name right now, so I don't make anyone feel bad about their name.
Sure. I don't think we know too many Thaxtons or on there, but yeah, certainly. Really cool though. Super nice kid. And then obviously Roosevelt's had an insane line of exclusives. I was actually shocked at how fast they were selling out. And honestly, I feel bad for those guys. They're all very close friends of ours at this point. It's always great to hang with them, but you can tell they are so stressed to get those exclusives out, because San Diego, where their particular Star Wars booth is right on one of the outside lanes, which kind of act as the highways to get to different parts of the con. And so I know that is constantly an issue for people who need to line up ahead of time. They put the wristbands on them. They got to come back at a certain time. So a huge shout out to Roosevelt's, the whole crew, Justin and John and Dustin and everybody who, they make it look easy and they do it with a smile on their face. But like, if you have followed exclusives among San Diego Comic-Con, it is cutthroat. It is like absolute piracy on the high seas of people lining up for stuff and then flipping it immediately on eBay. But the art was awesome. Everything. Forrest Davis, who's the Mosh Trooper, comes to Mosh Isley with this glowing helmet, the TK. He did a bunch of art this year, and I know that's really cool for him to see his art up on the wall. Someone who's also experienced that. And then all those guys go super hard at Mosh Isley. It's a great thing. Happy to have them on board with our show.
Well, all of this talk about Doug Chiang segues us perfectly into the main topic, which is George Lucas appearing at San Diego Comic-Con for the first time ever, setting records for attendance, which makes sense. Of course, it's George Lucas. But he was there along with Doug Chiang and Guillermo del Toro, to talk about the Lucas Museum of Narrative Art, a panel moderated by Queen Latifah, which at first took me aback a little bit, because she's an artist, she's an actor, she's a musical artist, but I wouldn't think of her off the top of my head when it comes to sci-fi and things like that. I don't know that she's ever been in a sci-fi film or anything. Great actor, great artist, but it took me back a little bit. But then she mentioned she was a good friend of George and his wife, and also the daughter of an art teacher. So she has like an entire lifetime, background of, she's from a family of art. She appreciates art. And it seems like she talks to George a lot about this stuff, because this museum's been in the work for a long time. And I thought she did an amazing job moderating the panel, which we all watched on YouTube because we weren't able to actually attend.
That having Queen Latifah, for people who to know about that, have you ever seen Ice Cube's architecture tours?
No, but I've heard they're amazing.
No. Incredible. So this is kind of what it's literally. Ice Cube is a humongous architecture nerd. Studied it while he was in college, and there's a series where he goes around and talks about Frank Lloyd Wright houses, and it is the most.
Sounds sick.
It's so awesome because you can see how passionate he is about it, but delivers it in the ice cold Ice Cube way that we all know and love. But you can tell that that's what he's into. So I think for Queen Latifah to do that, the whole thing was interesting, from the amount of people who respect George, but then also understand that they've worked alongside him. They've been inspired by him. They appreciate what he's doing. It was a really cool thing to watch.
So at the panel, they like any other big panel at any other big con, they of course shared things with the audience that didn't end up in the online version. Whoever shot this video, the one that we watched, was just someone's cell phone aimed at the screen. They, I'm sure, just so they didn't get dinged and taken down immediately, cut out the part in the middle, or were courteous enough not to record it in the first place. So we didn't get to see what they all got to see, but the website is out there. There are a handful of images, which I'll put on screen right now. That's not it. There are a handful of images that are out right now on the website, concept drawings that look amazing. The thing looks like a giant spaceship. It looks more like something from like the Orville than Star Wars or Star Trek.
Yeah,
almost
totally.
like Avenue, what's it called? Avenue 5 with what's his name from Silicon Valley. It's beautiful. It looks also very Apple, I guess, in a way, as well.
Yeah.
It's this big organic, curvy,
what about Flight of the Navigator? Does it look like Flight of the Navigator?
Nice, dude.
I can see that.
Feels a little Home 1 to me.
Yeah. And there's a great quote that we'll read later about the design of it, which is what they kind of closed with. But the main themes of the talk that I took from it were emotion, connection, community, belief, common belief systems, and the ways that art feeds all of those. George has a huge art collection, and he never sells any of it. He's not interested in making money. He talks about not being one of those kind of art collectors that buys something and flips it a few years later makes a bunch of money and thinks of it like an investment on a financial level. He thinks of it like an investment in community and connection for himself and then to share with other people. So that's the whole point of this museum. And I just couldn't agree more. I've got all this Star Wars crap here that I've been collecting forever. I'm going to sell it now just because I want to make space for other things. But I'm going to get a fraction of what I paid for it. I don't care. It was about having it and enjoying it in the first place. So I think we're all on that same level. I think we connect with that.
I have there for enough people who know me know that I buy art and then love to talk about how valuable it is.
Yeah.
And I will never sell it. I apologize. But unless something happens, right? But like I think from this standpoint, the collector of understanding, I think, especially coming off Comic-Con, there is something beyond just a value of something. Understanding that anything that was put out there at some point, this is when Favreau talks about actually physically building something that we've lost in CGI, something that we've lost in newspapers or any of these concert tickets, right, Adam? Like, movie tickets, all of these things. Once they are gone, when they don't exist anymore, you don't get to bring those with you. I generally like to say I like to collect things that can be kept beyond a power outage. And so we think about little stuff like this, it's there, it's a physical thing. And so I think for George to make a place rather than people trying to have NFTs and like, oh, just come and check this out, blah, 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 blah. He gets it. He gets that a museum is designed to be walked around in. The museum in which you walk around in is designed to make you feel a certain way. It's a pretty incredible thing. And for all the cities that missed out on this, like Chicago should be kicking itself. Chicago should be kicking itself right now, knowing that they didn't get this. And for Southern California to get this, especially right across from USC's campus, I'm like, man, I need to get back in school.
So was it Chicago?
Chicago was one
like
of
it was
those,
chosen and then it didn't happen. It wasn't like in the running. It was like chosen and then something happened.
If I remember correctly, there was a local conservation group that did not like the foot or what would you call it? The floor plan, the
footprint. Yeah.
Footprint. I think it was kicked around for something like Oakland or San Francisco, and that didn't end up happening. And there were a couple other places that were interested in, and it just didn't. And then apparently Southern California was the easiest place for them to build it. But looking at that in terms of its interactivity between being able to have these man-made structures and how much of these gardens and everything are built into it, it is literally the entire experience once you get on the campus of it is a living, breathing thing designed to bring you through an experience. It's awesome, frankly.
One thing that George called it, which I connected with so much because I always talk about Star Wars being my religion. He called this a temple to the people's art. And by the people's art, he's referring to all of these artists that he knows and loves, that he's worked with throughout his career, concept artists, prop makers, folks who are behind the scenes, who are part of larger projects, who don't necessarily put those things out there in their own show, their own gallery. They don't get the credit for their art that they deserve. So this to him, rather than the sort of high art that we see in traditional art museums that most people would think of in kind of like the classical snobby sense, art in an art museum that you feel like you have to dress up to go to. He loves it. He loves all art. He said that, but he's not as interested in that. This is the people's art. These are the pieces of art that were created to tell stories. Again, it's narrative art. That the idea of narrative art not being on par with the great artists of the Renaissance and other, more highly regarded artists is something that doesn't make sense to him, nor does it to any of us, of course. So I really connected with that. And, just the word temple and all the talk about mythology and making people believe stories that aren't true in a literal sense, but are true in an emotional sense, really, really resonated with me. So I couldn't be more excited for something that's built around those ideas. You guys think that's something that makes sense, or am I an idiot?
Yes.
I'm literally working on my Wi-Fi with the Discord folks right now.
That's okay. They're troubleshooting you. This is why you got to join.
Literally.
You know what I mean?
I think I just launched some nukes. Apologies.
Thank you, Henry.
Nice.
Shout out Henry Clark.
The part for I think for a lot of people, a museum as a concept is a very stuffy place. There's the idea that you have to be quiet. There's the idea that for some people, it's like a lot of people don't think that they understand art. And in some ways, I feel like even people like Shepard Fairey or some of the other modern artists who do more like what you would call street art, or the evolution of where a lot of these artists have been, have kind of brought the appreciation forward for that. But I think for a lot of people, I'm just getting I bought my brother some of those Eyes Without a Face from Comic-Con, and he was like, man, I guess I don't know why it took me so long to like just appreciate having a piece of art on my wall. And I'm like, dude, if it connects to you, if you look at it and go, sure, like this pop culture medium for you, if that's the thing that gets you into it, to appreciate that someone sat there and hand painted the details of this, that truly is a gateway for people. And I think when people look at the power of what makes a Ralph McQuarrie sketch so awesome, or what makes a model, or what makes a photograph, like whatever it is that draws you in, George understands the importance of both being able to understand conceptually what that is, rather than some, bogus thing you buy for $18 on sale from Target that looks like it should be at a dentist's office. So I think this is for people, I think it's actually going to do some really great things for people to understand the thought process behind where inspiration comes from. Because for a lot of people who don't feel comfortable in a museum-like setting, yet don't realize that when they go to the punk rock museum, they're experiencing the same thing. It's just through a medium that they're comfortable with. So I think this is going to be a fantastic thing moving forward for what it does for all appreciators of art.
Yeah, there's one thing that Del Toro said too that I thought, and he likened it to like, he said something like, imagine rock and roll was never enshrined, and like things like that, you have to kind of like put the line in the sand and build the temple and say, this is important, because if rock and roll is never enshrined, maybe it's not a moment in time anymore, or maybe that's all it ever was a moment in time. It's not something that's supposed to last. So you just mentioned the punk rock museum, or now this narrative art, like I feel like building the building that contains something that's important makes it live forever, or at least longer, because especially the way attention spans are these days, and just information being at people's fingertips, it's like stuff just seems less precious than it ever was, and that sucks for sure. And it's almost like there needs to be like, and I know that there is for certain things, but like an endowment for the arts, where it's like, here is something that, as I want to say, and this sounds weird to say right now, but like as an American or as a country, this is what is important to us as a species, like, and we'll never forget this. This is how important this is to our, like, the human race. And like a museum or a temple, which they definitely use the word temple on in this panel a bunch. It's like, that's how you do it, like that's the sort of thing that like inspires people, but also lets the world know, or like the future know, that this was important to us at a certain point,
Right.
Mike, you mentioned the difference between putting up something that really matters or that tells a story versus, an $18 print that you get from Target or something, or IKEA. IKEA is a good example of something where, it's curated for people who maybe don't know what they would put up in their residence.
Sure.
And they see a skyline and think, oh, that looks cool, I'll do that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I guess the next step is to say, oh, I'm from this city, so I'm going to get a skyline of that, or a city that I like. I'm going to do that.
Sure.
And it tends to be some kind of cheap print. Ultimately, someone took that photo at some point. They did capture a moment in time.
Mm-hmm.
Capturing that photo is art. But a lot of people, most people kind of want a little something more. Putting up a photo is one thing. Family photos, that's definitely a thing. But I think about what I have hanging in my house. There's only one Star Wars poster up. It's the one that you and Ryan got me, the Mandalorian season 1 print with the gold leaf detail.
The Fraser Gillespie piece.
Yeah. There's that. There's a no doubt two canvas piece that my wife and I made when we were still dating in our apartment back in the day. There's a print of a Struzen style collage of our pets all together in a way that, what I'm trying to say here is it's taking things and creating moments, or a version of history, like the myth of a relationship, of a family, of a history. They're drawn in a way that, it's 3 dogs, a squirrel, and a hedgehog, and assembled in a way that they would never be, ever, because it's about, consolidating the memory and creating this myth. And myth in the cultural sense, like in the family sense in this case. And then I have a print of Abby from Broad City with a quote that's my wife's favorite moment from the entire series, that a good friend of mine hand screen printed at this awesome screen printing shop in St. Louis. So they all have these like special elements to them that aren't just that thing off a shelf, even though those can be beautiful things. Like
Sure.
The community, the emotional connection, all of that is what makes it real and makes it not something that you just get over at some point and it ends up in the dumpster when you move to your next residence.
And some of that is also the time in which that mattered. That, right. You know what I mean? Like something is beyond just the piece itself. It was also the cultural significance of when it was created, or the role that it plays now. And so I think from George's standpoint, even if we look back on it, there's a lot of people who credit Ralph McQuarrie's pieces as being the images that sold Star Wars, because without those pieces, there was nothing for this studio to give a relatively unknown director a crazy bankroll in a crazy timeline, with all of these weird demands of him going, I'll pay for it myself, you just distribute it. And they're like, what's happening here? But then they looked at the art and they said, I don't know if we've ever seen this before. Like this, if they can pull this off, this is going to be amazing. And when you think about the inspiration of other artists like Sid Mead, and this is just talking very specifically because of our Star Wars podcast, but when you think about the importance of those things at the time, look at what those images, which is just paint on paper, look at what they launched. And you could say the same thing for Keith Haring. You could say the same thing for Basquiat or any Shepard Fairey. You could almost argue in some ways that Barack Obama would have not got elected if Shepard Fairey wouldn't have taken a street art approach to saying he is the people's representative at this point, and made a graffiti guy who's been relatively anti-establishment got on board with a presidential candidate for the time that mobilized youth. that was
Yeah.
crazy, right? And so when you look at that from that standpoint, this is what I think George is trying to get at, of saying you are not going to know everything in this museum, and some of it might not make sense to you, but it does to me. And maybe through time, through you learning more about it, you'll understand where I was coming from, or I just like it,
Yeah.
which is also a very George Lucas thing.
There's a great clip that I want to play here about stories and mythology that I won't preface too much. We've already been kind of mentioning some of the themes, but let's just hear it in full right now.
The museum is dedicated to the idea that stories, mythology, any kind of story that is written to affect people and to build community is extremely important to society and creating societies and creating community. Art illustrates that story, and that's the right hand of building a community. Is you need the art to make it seem real. Even back in the whether it's the Renaissance or the Stone Age, you'll always have a story that people believe. It's mythology. It's not really true, but people believe it, and it binds them together with a common belief system. That common belief system is what is really important. And what we're doing here with the museum is to try to make people aware of the mythology that we live by, and at the same time, let them have an emotional experience looking at art that does tell the modern mythology.
Modern mythology, which is what Star Wars is to us.
100%.
It's, when I say Star Wars is my religion, that's what I mean. It clearly, it's not something that, I wouldn't say I believe in the Force as a real thing. I don't think any of us do per se, but the mythology, the lessons that are taught, the archetypes that these stories use that are consistent with every major mythology back to the beginning of oral history is what we're experiencing when we experience Star Wars. So it's powerful, man, and it's important. I agree. Like, he talks about building communities around it. The fact that he showed up at this thing, this giant convention, this like worship event, essentially, says a lot.
Did you notice that towards the end he says he kind of went out of his way, I feel like, to say that he believes in God, but he doesn't know what it is?
Yeah.
I was like, I love that.
That's a George Lucas thing right there.
Yeah, right.
Let's get into there's some cool stuff in here that I think is going to grab some people and also turn some heads too. Let's talk about what's inside here.
Yeah, they did mention a few things that would be just a little taste of what would be in the museum.
Yeah.
The very first character drawing of Flash Gordon from 1934.
That's cool.
The actual piece. Some original sketches from Peanuts cartoons from the 1950s and 60s. Snoopy. For anyone who doesn't remember that it's called Peanuts, the cartoon.
Sure.
Original drawings from Iron Man's first cover in 1968. Original pen and ink splash. What is splash in the comic sense?
It's basically the rough before it gets color. It's basically the illustrations that then get refined over time. And so you have basically like the sketches goes from a sketch face, which is a bunch of blue pencil, and then the inker goes in and throws all the effects on there. So about Black Panther, of course, being we're a Star Wars podcast, but you have Stan Lee and Jack Kirby as the co-creators of Black Panther, who was designed to originally combat the rise of the KKK back in America after seemingly being pushed to the shadows where they belong. And so there's Black Panther has an incredible significance in both comic books and also a time politically for the country to give the idea that African Americans have a superhero that is akin to the Captain Americas, the Iron Mans. And so in a style that Jack Kirby was very into, which his stuff was very into futurism, you have Fantastic Four, you have Galactus, you have what's called the Kirby Crackle, which is all of the hands out and all these little dots that he was using with a Q-tip and ink. And Afrofuturism was the whole basis of this advanced civilization of Wakanda for Black Panther. So the fact that they have one of these original pieces, because those hold a lot of significance beyond just Marvel Comics history. It's political history too. So I think that's awesome they have that piece in there.
And then they didn't mention these in the panel, but there's since been some news. There was some news around the con. A full-scale Naboo starfighter and a full-scale land speeder, Luke's land speeder from A New Hope, will be in the museum.
There should be a full-size General Grievous also. Like in his speeder thing.
The big wheel. What was that thing called?
I don't know what it's called.
Yeah. Tread speeder, something along those lines. I think that's sequel trilogy.
The design that we mentioned earlier, and we showed the photos. We'll put these up again while we're talking. You notice, and Lucas mentioned, no right angles at all curves. George grew up on Cars. There's a little influence there, but Queen Latifah posed a question: Why no right angles? What is this about? George went way off the rails and started talking about all kinds of other stuff. He was getting to a point, but finally Guillermo had to pull him back in. And his quote, which I'll read here in a second, the idea was that the flow of the curved design is sort of a metaphor for the illusion of possession. And Mike, like you said at the very beginning, the idea that you can't take anything with you after you're dead. So this idea of possession, regardless of how locked away you keep your things or you hand them down to your family, you don't know what's going to happen after you're gone. You know, you could hand all the stuff down to your family and they could sell it the very next day. So it truly is an illusion. The idea that something is only for one person.
Sure.
So the continuum of things, or the continuum that things and ideas flow through from person to person, that belongs to all of us. So this design sort of is a metaphor for that. And he said, quote, "The shape of the museum for me, what it is flow. And what's beautiful is that we're all collectors. George is a collector. I'm a collector. But I know I don't own anything. I'm holding the artworks briefly for the next person that's going to hold it or see it." Which I love.
That's so cool. I love that.
It's pretty amazing. I didn't realize that he was such a big part of this museum. Did you guys find out what percentage of the museum is his collection versus George's, and what else they're bringing in? Do you have any idea of those details?
Did they talk about that?
I haven't heard.
Nick? No. Yeah. I know that there's a few other people contributing to it that aren't named as well.
Okay.
So I think as more comes out, I think for a while there's going to be, I think they're smart, honestly, to do this. It's just, you're going to get every couple weeks, every couple months until it opens, you're going to get some other big thing that turns out this person was a big was a big donor. But it's smart for them to do it. But yeah, it's very cool. In some ways you can almost argue that every modern filmmaker owes something to George at this point.
Yeah, I would be really surprised if there wasn't something from James Cameron, something from
Spielberg,
Denis Villeneuve, folks like that.
Right.
The big ones. Christopher Nolan. There's going to have to be some stuff from all of those folks. And originally, wasn't there more of a focus on sci-fi, at least when this was originally announced? I remember feeling like it was a sci-fi museum, or at least, I don't know, maybe that was just my interpretation.
I don't remember that as much as I remember it being more of like stuff that was inspiring for George.
Got it.
Being such a kind of a geek of human history in his own way. I would certainly say, George being a product of, the 40s, 50s, 60s, his love of cars, American graffiti. Cars play such a significant part of our culture as a country that I think being in Detroit, growing up in Detroit, that was part of what we came to understand them in terms of the factories that made the cars switched over to make the tanks that ended up defeating the Axis. When you think about things like that, it was the height of what the world really was able to contribute when they were building things together, both in not just our production, but also our imaginations. And you look at so many of things like Doug Chang's, like even this N1, this isn't that far off. This isn't that far off from,
sorry.
That's okay. Really isn't that far off from when you would see like a 1950s or a 60s Chevy. The body had a lot of chrome and had these bright colors. It's very interesting that in the 1960s, you'd have a man's man, as stupid people on the internet would refer to them as. In the 1960s, coming home and be like, honey, look, I have the most masculine vehicle in our neighborhood, which happens to be a baby blue with big gaudy tips. A Bel Air, whatever, a Chevy, a Ford, a Corvair, whatever you would call them. So I think in some ways for George to understand what that was like, but then also being someone who is chopping and screwing with his cars to make hot rods, taking the idea that almost like in some ways street racing was punk rock. They would take these beautiful engineered cars and they would go bring them into the shop, make them faster, make them louder, make them look angry. Is such a rebellious attitude that feels very similar to many themes that we have seen that George resonates with. His focus on doing the Tuskegee Airmen with red tails. Again, another part of history that's incredibly punk rock. So I think in some ways this is more a museum of things that inspire George and what the world and a look at a view of the world through George's eyes, which makes a lot of sense and frankly has me incredibly excited rather than just a museum of science fiction, which I too would love.
Right.
But I think there's enough out there that other people could handle that topically. But I think the inspiration of that, which is what Star Wars keeps trying to do, go back to the Westerns, go back to the samurai films. Don't be inspired by Star Wars to write more Star Wars.
Well, that's hard not to do.
Sure.
Well, let's wrap up here. There's a great quote from Doug Chang, and Doug Chang said some other things that I would love to talk about. So we'll just save that for the bonus segment for patrons. Go ahead and get out of here for everyone else. I should mention, speaking of patrons, I went back and looked at the tiers, our Patreon tiers, what each tier gets for their money. And I realized that there are some things that we reserved for higher tiers that we've been giving to all tiers. And I think we need to adjust to make sure that we give people what they're paying for. So consider everything up to this point a bonus. And my bad to everyone in the higher tiers for not getting their exclusive content. So going forward,
free story of the year tickets. Congratulations, everybody.
Everyone, VIP tickets to my kitchen, free acoustic show in my bathroom, and tours of Nick's house for all Basehead fans.
Everyone could come try and fix my internet.
Whoever gets to do it gets to scratch my dog's head.
That's the Grandmaster Jedi tier.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. Thanks again for listening. Thanks for watching. And until next week, may the Force be with you. Thank the Maker is produced by Adam Russell and Jason Chiodo and edited by Jason Chiodo. If you enjoy the podcast, you can support us by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Or you can support us directly at patreon.com/thankthemakerpod, where you can get access to our Discord server, exclusive content, exclusive merch, and more. Our patrons literally make Thank the Maker possible.